Okay, everybody, welcome to the April Planning Committee. I think we'll just move straight to the agenda, if that's okay with everybody. So, agenda item 1, do we have any apologies for absence and substitutes? Councillor Rachel Ellis.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, please, from Councillor Linda Pearson. I am acting as substitute.
Thank you. And, Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Chair. No apologies for absence, but Councillor Smith, we are expecting him and he'll be on his way, I'm sure.
Caught in that traffic, I'd expect.
I expect so. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have apologies for absence from Councillor Elwood as well. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 2, which is the draft minutes of the last meeting, which I'd like to propose as a true and correct record of the meeting. To have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Any comments at all? No. Shall we move to the vote? All of those in favour of accepting the minutes? I think that was unanimous. Is that right? Yeah. Oh, one abstention. Thank you. Okay, so that's carried. So we move on to agenda item 3. Are there any declarations of interest, either pecuniary or non-pecuniary? No, thank you. So we'll move on to agenda item 4, which is land south of Main Street, Calverton. This is a reserve matter application, which regards layout, scale, landscape and appearance, and it's going to be presented by Officer Nigel Bryan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the application site lies to the south of Main Road, and you can see West End to the immediate east as you look at it. It's a field that is, vacant field, with trees to the site periphery, which are subject to a preservation order, and there's a modest change of levels through the application site, with a low point toward the southeast corner near West End and Long West Croft. The application site is a reserved matters application made pursuant to the outline 2018/0360. At the outline stage, access was committed and identifies a primary vehicle access point would be to the centre of the site and from Main Road. As a result, this reserve the matters under consideration are layout, scale, appearance and landscaping. And the actual application site is allocated for residential development under policy LPD 66 and identifies that up to 75 dwellings could be accommodated. The layout has been amended from its original submission. There's proposed to be 3 areas of public open space, 2 to the frontage in this location, and then a larger area of public open space in this corner, which would include the Suds Pond and also the play equipment that you can see here. And as a result of that, the number of dwellings has reduced down from 77 that was originally proposed down to 73. A number of the properties would also now be double fronted. For argument's sake, this one in here would have a frontage overlooking the public open space and also in this direction. So the layout has improved over and above from when it was originally submitted. The housing mix is considered to be appropriate and would incorporate 20% affordable dwellings or 15 units. And of those 15 units, 5 would be 3-bed shared ownership, and then the 10 would be 2-bed affordable rental properties. Of the 58 open market dwellings, the housing mix would be 15 of 5-bed properties, 28 of 4-bed properties, 15 3-bed and one 2-bedroom bungalow. The mix of house types is considered to be appropriate. It provides some visual diversity within the site, and each would have some brick detailing, etc., within the at the top here, and they would also have the stone sills. So I'll just run through a few examples of the house types. And this is one of the larger 5-beds. This is the 4-bed, and this is the double-fronted property, as I mentioned, you would see as you're entering into the site. This is an example of one of the 3-bed properties. And this is the house type for the 2-bed social rent that's to be provided. The final detail of the landscaping would need to be approved via condition, but that will be looking to retain the vast majority of the hedgerow. So this plan shows the tree protection that would need to be in place to ensure that the hedgerow toward the site periphery is retained, and it's only this section here of the hedgerow that would need to be removed to facilitate the access. Garages on the site have been increased in size to ensure compliance with the parking SPD. Each property would have at least 2 parking spaces, and the large properties would have 3. Swept pass analysis have been provided to ensure that refuse vehicles can get around the site, and the Highway Authority have raised no objection to the application. And impacts on residential amenity have been considered in the block structure within the site would ensure there would be a distance of 21 metres between properties within the site. And then in particular, this plot here is the one that's proposed to be the bungalow, given its short rear gardens. That will be the one bungalow on site. And these 3 properties that are adjacent to the properties on West End here, they would have gardens of not less than 12 and up to 14 metres. The impact on the properties on West End is considered to be acceptable in terms of possible overlooking and overbearing impacts. And the distance from this unit here is approximately 14 metres. So again, those distances are considered to be acceptable to ensure that residential amenity would be respected. And just really more for clarity as well, the section 106 that was secured at the outline, that would still be enforced, and all the contributions there would continue through to this application be secured. So just briefly, it'd be the 20% affordable provision, the on-site maintenance of the equipment. There will be the education contributions for primary and secondary, NHS, and then the bus stop improvements, as well as a local labour agreement. But in conclusion, the principal development has been established, being an allocated site, and there's an outline permission in place. And the matters under consideration for this application are layout, appearance, scale and landscaping. And these are considered to be acceptable in respecting the character of the area, residential amenity and highway safety. I'll just quickly look at a few pictures of the site. This is just a view from where the Suds Pond is proposed to be and the play equipment. That's a view from West End. And this is just a view of the access, and the 2 prominent trees you see here, there to be retained, and the access would come through in roughly in this central location. And there's just a couple of pictures of within the site. But the recommendation is to approve the reserve matters as outlined on pages 36 to 37 of the agenda. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I'd like to propose item 4 for the purpose of debate. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Thank you. Any speakers on this item? Councillor Greensmith.
Actually, Chair, it's a point of order. On page 30, LPD 36, affordable housing, it sets out the 20% affordable housing provision will be required in Carlton. Is that a mistype? Should that actually say Calverton? I think there's 1 or 2 others floating around.
Yeah, apologies. Yeah, that's just a typo, but yes, it should read Calverton. Apologies.
I just wanted to double check, just in case I'd...
Thank you for that. Okay. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Chair. Just an update. Councillor Smith has sent his apologies. He's not going to be able to make it. But I also have a question, if I may. Just looking at the map where the proposed new houses back onto the existing houses, and I know we've got that quite a large gap between the two, which you explained. The existing houses, are any of them bungalows at all?
They're a mixture of dormers and bungalows. I
Right.
think the majority are dormers, but yeah, there's a mixture. I think along Main Street, they're predominantly 2-storey. Along West End, they're predominantly dormer-type bungalows.
Okay, but we're still satisfied that there won't be any overlooking issues because presumably it's the new properties are mainly two-storey and the older properties are single-storey.
Looking at the distances, yeah, the minimum garden distance from there is 12. I think this one's in the region of about 15 metres, that one there. So I think the window to windows is going to be well in excess of the 20 metres we'll generally look for, yes.
Okay, and sorry, just one more question. And I know they never do, but I'm always concerned that, I know they have a specific amount of time to start the development, but I'm always concerned, especially when we're building a small housing estate like this next to existing properties, that the build can go on and on and on and on, and it's really unpleasant for the people who live there, as we've seen, I think, up at the Strata Homes development at the Hobbocks recently with all the dust, etc. Have we any idea from the developer how long they expect this to take?
Unfortunately, once development has commenced, theoretically they could build out at whatever pace they choose, but within the outline, one of the conditions within the outline does require a noise and dust management plan to be approved. So hopefully there'll be enough within the outline to try to ensure any kind of impacts on amenity from the build can be minimised.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Chair. I have got a few questions, so you might want to write them down as we go along. 7.12, it says about flooding in the Leader Flood Authority, about the lack of information. I'm just wondering whether you've got any more information on that. 7.13, you talk about new play equipment, which is great. I'm just wanting to check that that will be maintained by Gedling Borough Council. And 7.14, about ecology, I'm just wondering if, it might be controversial me saying this, whether a bat survey has been done, because I know it's been requested for another planning application. And just following on what Councillor Bestwick said about the length of time for building, I'm conscious that this house builder seems to take much longer than other house builders. And I know Dark Lane seems to have been going on years. Maple Close took years to finish. And I'm just conscious that roads aren't done and other residents are then concerned about that. So I don't know whether there's any conditions where we can state a time or will it be the same? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, in terms of the observations of the lead flood authority, there's a condition on the outline that actually require the final details of the drainage to be approved through that. So that was why it hasn't been addressed, because it would be dealt with through the discharge of condition application. In terms of the play equipment, there's 5 pieces to be identified. The final actual equipment will be designed and submitted through the discharge of the Section 106 agreement. So that's when the final details of that will be provided, and that's when that will be approved. In terms of the future maintenance, the Section 106, from recollection, is worded such that it can be taken on by the council, or it could be controlled through a management company. But we couldn't say at this moment in time which one is the preferred option, but it could be the council, and I think the contribution towards the maintenance was in around 77k. So, but it could be either or as to the future maintenance. And as for the build time, realistically, I'm afraid the answer would be the same as to Councillor Bestwick, that once permission's been implemented, it could be built at whatever kind of rate that they choose. And then, sorry, I think there was ecology as well. And just for the ecology would have been actually considered at the outline stage, and I think there was a condition in respect of ecology to comply with the approved ecological report. So I think it would have been covered at the outline stage. Forgive me while I just have a quick look. Yeah, sorry. So condition. Yeah, so on the outline, condition 11 referred to the development shall be undertaken in accordance with the recommendations of the submitted ecology report and protected species survey that was done with the outline. So the ecology is being addressed to the outline application as opposed to the reserve matters.
I know it's been raised by a couple of councillors that there are concerns about build-out rates and whether developments will be completed in a timely fashion. We are, as Nigel said, a little bit stuck with the system, unfortunately. The Planning Act does allow the service of a completion notice, but it's not a tool that's very effective at all, unfortunately. And I think that the government are looking at ways to encourage developers to complete sites in a more timely fashion. So, as you've said, neighbouring occupiers aren't adversely affected for long periods of time. At the moment, the completion notice would require a developer to complete a site within 12 months and then planning permission's withdrawn. But then what happens with the rest of the site? If it's been stripped or if it's a partial build, it will then just be left without planning permission and they can't complete it. So if this developer, say for example, was building out at a rate of 20 a year and they'd completed half the site, they're not going to get it done within 12 months, and then we'll be left with a site that's probably even worse than a building site, and then people are potentially living on it. So unfortunately, it is a quirk of the system that we're working within, and we can't do much about it, unfortunately.
Councillor Walker.
Thank you for that. I think 12 months is probably unrealistic. It's just that you probably know 2 of them in Calverton, they've been more than like 4 and 5 years. And to me, that is there not any planning laws at all that can do a condition? I don't know. I just feel it's unfair on the residents in Calverton. We're taking this, we know that we're having housing, but Maple Close in particular took so long and the road wasn't done right till the end, because I understand they don't do it till the end. But this is the same house builder, and I've got people on West End and Long Wexcroft who fill in my inbox with, how long is it going to take? And we know they're not directly involved, but they're all next to it and the traffic's going by and you've got the dust. So it's just obviously my concern and raising it for my residents, which is what I'm here for. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bestwick.
Yeah, sorry, this probably isn't the forum for this discussion, but you know, I don't know if we could look at things like financial penalties for not completing developments on time, and I appreciate you can't have 12 months for every development, but if the developer agrees a timescale and then doesn't stick to it, maybe that could be applied to the planning application. I don't know, I'll just put it out there, but thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks for that. I can understand residents being upset by these sorts of things. Okay, I was just going to ask, is there any more speakers? Councillor Rachel Ellis.
Yes, I do note that one resident's letter talked about a concern that the play equipment, the play area, was next to the SUDS. And given that concern has been raised, what consideration has been given to that? Thank you.
The main reason would, main means by which to control that really would be just through the boundary treatments, and so I think there was condition 6 on the reserve matters would look to control possible boundary treatments, but from my experience it's generally just you know, like a 3-4 bar fence type thing that is usually erected, and you know, that is generally sufficient. So I couldn't say 100% if it's going to be a permanently dry or wet pond, but normally the 3 to 4 bar fence is sufficient to ensure that children couldn't or shouldn't get in there.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Right, shall we move to the vote? So we're voting on agenda item 4. The recommendation is to grant reserve matters approval, subject to conditions set out in pages 36 and 37. All those in favour? Thank you. That was unanimous, so the permission is granted. We'll move on to item 5, which is Calverton Footpath 22, land off George's Lane, Calverton. This is a footpath diversion order application, and it will be introduced by Claire Turton.
Thank you, Chair. So this application seeks to divert Calverton footpath number 22, which is off of George's Lane in Calverton. So planning permission was granted in 2022 for a change of use of the site to a burial ground. And then planning permission was granted again in April 2024 for the construction of 3 barrows in association with that burial site. And the diversion of the footpath is in order to facilitate these planning permissions. So the footpath route at the moment, I'm trying to get the pointer to work, yeah. Oh. The footpath at the moment goes from George's Lane is here, there's a line of trees, and then the footpath pops out at the edge of this field here before exiting the field here. And what they want to do is keep the access the same through the trees, but then to follow the proposed path as part of the wider cemetery landscaping scheme, and then there's going to be some landscaping around where the existing footpath is. In terms of the assessment, we don't feel that the diversion of this footpath will have any discernible impact on the permeability of the site as a whole. It'll have the same access points and the same exit points, and the path will still run through that rural setting. It should also be noted that Nottinghamshire County Council's Rights of Way officer has no objection to the proposal. And apologies, there was a verbal update on the application in that Calverton Parish Council have now also raised no objections to the proposal. So for that reason, we are recommended to approve the making of the order to divert this footpath. Sorry, there's some photos as well. This is the site. The one on the left is you go through George's Lane, through the trees, and that's looking towards the exit. And the one on the right is looking back through the site. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'd like to propose agenda item 5 for the purpose of debate. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Does anyone want to speak on this item? Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Chair. It's a Calverton day today, can you tell? Just 2 little things. I'm not actually sure, maybe you can just enlighten me, why did they actually want to move the footpath? Because I don't mind, it's still there, but I'm not quite sure why they want to move it. And in 4.3, if you can just show me on the map, Claire, it says, then west along Main Street and the larger public open space before turning south along the smaller area, and then west on to Crawford Rise. Now, I live in Calverton, but I'm not sure where Crawford Rise is. Can you just explain that bit to me? Thank you.
Yeah, so they want to move the footpath just because that's where the proposed path through the cemetery site is going, so just for legibility. And also they want to landscape where the existing footpath is. So it's just part of the wider sort of landscaping footpath scheme. And then the roads you point to in your second question, that's actually part of the next application. There's 2 applications to divert footpaths. And the other one's the one in Arnold, which is the Crawford Rise one.
Thank you. Councillor Nyok.
Hello, thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. In going on in the future, who will be responsible for the maintenance of the footpath?
So it will still be Nottinghamshire County Council.
Thank you. Councillor Strong?
Oh dear, sorry, part of the microphone's fallen apart. Yes, it looks very nice. I just wondered, since it will remain a public right of way, would it not be slightly off-putting for the general public strolling through a burial ground? Has that been raised? I see there's no objection, and it does look very nice, but it's a little bit different from just walking along the edge of a field instead of walking through a burial ground. Thank you.
Yeah, so obviously the planning application for the burial ground and the barrows have already been approved with the footpath running through it as it was. So the footpath is just proposed to be removed. So the footpath is there already. You know, the people have got to get from one end of the site to the other through the footpath. So it is just proposing to be removed slightly, but the permission's already been granted for the burial ground and the barrows.
Thank you. I just wondered, I realised the footpath was already there. I was just wondering if people might be a bit put off, but if there's been no reaction to it, it's just something that occurred to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers on this item? Shall we move to the vote? We're voting on agenda item 5. The recommendation is to authorise the Director of Place to make the order as set out on page 44 in your agenda. All those in favour? Thank you very much. That's unanimous, so that's approved. Moved on to item 6, which is another footpath, Arnold Footpath 3, Crawford Rise to Mapley Plains, Arnold. It's a diversion of that footpath to be introduced again by Claire Turton.
Yeah, so another footpath diversion order, and this time it's classed as Arnold. It's just off Mapley Plains, just next to Brookfield Garden Centre, and it's Arnold Footpath number 3. So this is the aerial view of the site, just here. And as you can see, the existing footpath runs in a diagonal line from one corner of the site at Mapley Plains onto the residential estate to the rear on Crawford Rise. Planning permission was granted in January 2025 for 54 dwellings. And in order to facilitate this permission, it's proposed to divert the footpath, so it will still have the same access point from Mapley Plains, running along here, down here, over the road, to the side of the larger public open space, just in front of the smaller public open space, and then it will still have the same exit as well onto Crawford Rise. Again, it's one where the Nottinghamshire County Council Rights of Way officer has raised no objection. And in terms of assessment, again, we feel that it won't have a discernible impact on the permeability of the site or the footpath. It still has the same access and exit points. The path, where possible, will run alongside the public open space. Some of it is adjacent to public highways, but they're not main roads, and where possible, it has been along the public open space. So, again, we're recommending to approve the making of the order to divert the footpath. And these are just the photos. At the moment, it has been temporarily stopped up, so that the site is caged off, but the photo on the left is from Crawford Rise. The photo on the left is from Mapley Plains, and the photo on the right is from Crawford Rise. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'd like to propose agenda item 6 for the purpose of debate. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wilkinson, thank you. Does anybody want to speak on this item? Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you. Yeah, I can confirm that I can't actually walk across that field at the minute, and I've walked that field for donkey's years. It's going to make for a very interesting diversion when it's open again, because I regularly walk that way across to Woodborough, down through the valley, and then across back through to Lamley for the Dumballs. very interesting area. Obviously, I'm sad to see it go, but it will make for an interesting walk around. And as long as it's reinstated in a way that makes it good for the public, I'm happy for that to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Pope. Thank you.
But I won't take that personally. I just wanted to ask, so obviously this is an extension to an existing housing estate, yes? So there'll be other routes that are joining up. So assuming people don't necessarily stick to the route that is guided, is there likely to be any inconvenience to residents if people decide to take shortcuts through other routes?
So there is still the same and the only exit and entry points to and from. So I don't think there'd be any obvious way to, any other obvious way to cut through this field. I believe you can get from one end to the other around the existing the estate that's already there. But no, in terms of this specific site, there is only the one access and exit route. So I don't think there would be any other way through that field.
I was thinking more that if people were coming from the Crawford, right, well, either end, they might cut through the adjoining new estate, and whether that would include cutting, yes, the one where the roundabout is. That, I mean, it might not be a problem. I could see if suddenly you're cutting across somebody's front lawn, it would be quite annoying for them.
I think there is, at the moment, because when I visited the site, the field was fenced off. And I think there is an alternative way round the estate, but I believe that it is a lot longer and it's not signposted easily. So this would be the official public right-of-way through.
I was wondering what was going to happen to the footpath whilst the development has been built out.
Yeah, so that's in control of the county council. When I visited to put the site notices up, there was already a notice there that said that it was temporarily closed, but there was an alternative route from point A to point B, which is around the housing estate that's already been built.
Okay, Councillor Wheeler.
Yeah, just to confirm what you've just said, actually, that is correct. Thank you.
Councillor Graham Pope.
Thank you, Chair. The issue raised by the other Councillor Pope relates to part of the Alexander Park development. I think it was Patchett Close. There was an issue where people were walking through people's gardens and pushing through a hedge, creating a new access point as a shortcut. I think the developers did put a solid fence up to prevent that, but I think there would be concerns that that would happen again.
They shouldn't be previously because the only right of way through that field is on that public right of way. That's not to say people don't do it. When I visited previously for the housing application, there were gaps where you could cut through. But with the housing development, once it's built out, you know, a lot of the hedgerow will then become part of people's gardens, so there wouldn't be access to it anyway. So it should lessen that risk.
Can't see any more speakers. Shall we move to the vote? So we're voting on agenda item 6. The recommendation is to authorise the Director of Place to make the order as set out on page 50 of your agenda. All those in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous, that's carried. Okay, so now we've got to an item for noting, which is item 7, which is the appeal summary at 19 Silverwood Avenue, Ravenshead. Any comments on this particular one? Are we happy to note it? Yeah, thank you. So we move on to agenda item 8, which is appeal summary for 308 Colton Hill, Colton. Any comments on this one? So we're happy to note it. Yeah. And item 9, which is also an appeal summary, land west of 175 Mansfield Road. I think John's got an update. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a quick overview on this appeal, because it was an appeal where we referred the statement to the delegation panel because we decided not to defend the reason for refusal. The appeal related to the refusal of planning permission for the stationing of caravans for residential purposes and the keeping of horses on land to the west of 175 Mansfield Road at Papelwick. The report's summarised on page 55 of your agenda. The application was refused planning permission in May of 2024 for the reason that the stationing of caravans for residential purposes was considered to be inappropriate development within the green belt, and as such detrimental to its openness. And the applicant hadn't demonstrated any very special circumstances that would outweigh this harm. And that was having regard to the guidance within the NPPF and the travellers' guidance at that time. However, the NPPF was updated, as we're aware, in December of 24, and there was a significant change in policy in respect of whether or not gypsy sites would be an appropriate development within the green belt. Paragraph 155 of the NPPF made it clear that where the council has a shortfall of available pitches for gypsy sites, and Gedling Borough Council require 1 pitch, this could amount to the use not being appropriate development within the green belt. Therefore, the applicant would no longer have to demonstrate very special circumstances. There was also a need for the applicant to demonstrate that the site was in a sustainable location, and the inspector felt that given the location of the site adjacent to Mansfield Road and the frequency of buses, it was considered on balance to be the case that a gypsy site would be a sustainable use in this location. As a result, the council determined not to defend the appeal, and the inspector agreed on both of these key points with regard to the lack of available pitches and the sustainability of the site. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any comments from anybody? Councillor Beswick.
Thank you, Chair. This really is just for all of the members to be aware. There's 2 important phrases in agenda item number 9 on page 55. Following the publication of the updated NPPF in December 2024, I've spoken about this in full council. I urge you all to read the new NPPF 2024. It is not a slight change to the way things are viewed. It's a radical change that's going to have an impact on every piece of green belt and possibly every green space in Gedling and probably the country. There's also another point there. It says there was also a need for the applicant to demonstrate that the site is in a sustainable location, and it was deemed sustainable because of the frequency of buses. So what that could mean is that any green belt on a bus stop could be fair game, could be converted to grey belt, and then the different rules apply. Now, you know, I'm not saying they definitely are, but I'm saying for your own sakes, please get a copy of the NPPF, read it, and then make your own judgment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Pope.
So it was just for some clarification, really. So because as a result of this being allowed, we will now have our 1 site, does that mean that loophole as such can't be used again because we have now got our 1 designated site, so it can't be used as a further excuse to have another one?
Yes, within the green belt, we will be able to use this for future inappropriate development, and because we've met the need now with this one site, that paragraph will no longer be engaged. So the brief answer is yes.
Thank you. Any more comments? We're happy to note it. Yep. Thank you. Agenda item 10, which is future planning applications, which is for noting. Any comments at all? I'm happy to note that. Yep. Councillor 11, agenda item 11, which is the planning delegation action sheets, which is for noting. Any comments? Happy to note that. Yep. And finally, I have no urgent business. So thank you for your attendance and good night.